Hi everyone, welcome to episode 1 of LeadSquared's Fintech Week. My name is Kartika and I'll be your host for the day. Thank you so much for joining our session. So today we will be discussing about transforming payments in the year 2022. Before we get to the agenda of the webinar and discuss the webinar, let me introduce you to our amazing panel of speakers. Joining me today, we have Mr. Atul Mehta, who is the Senior Vice President of Sales at RazorPay. Mr. Atul, thank you so much for joining us from the airport launch, that too. Yes, so please, sir, tell us a bit about yourself and what you'll be discussing in this webinar.
First of all, thanks for inviting me for this, and I love to participate in such discussions and share my knowledge, whatever little knowledge I have about the fintech sector, because I feel this is the sunshine sector right now, one of the sunshine sectors right now, and going by the trend we are witnessing, this will definitely be the sunshine sector for at least 5 to 7 more years before it becomes around stable. We'll continue witnessing exponential growth, new innovations happening, and so on and so forth. And as for the airport lounge, well, that's the life of a salesman, and I do sales. So, and in fact, I know these lounge people better than I know my family. So, because I spend more time with them. Anyways, so about myself, well, I'm Atul Mehta, a very, I'll say, copybook profile of engineer plus MBA, electrical engineer, MBA from IIM Ahmedabad. Then worked for around 8 years in consulting, KPMG, PwC. Then my fintech journey or my startup journey started, and been in the startup sector now for more than 6 years. Been in the fintech sector now for more than 6 years. Worked earlier with PayU and MobiKwik, and now currently I am with RazorPay for 4.5 years. So that's what I am.
All right, thank you so much. Looking forward to learning from you. We also have Mr. Sridhar Sampat, who is the Vice President of Partnership and Business Development here at LeadSquared. Sridhar, please tell us a bit about yourself and again what we can expect from you in this webinar.
Thank you so much, Kartika. And Atul, once again, thank you so much for taking time out and being a part of the LeadSquared Fintech Week. It's amazing to have you here. And to tell the audience about myself quickly, again, very similar to Atul, the standard engineer MBA profile, but spent a large part of my career in manufacturing organizations, looking at manufacturing software and related stuff. Before about 2.5 years ago, I decided to leave the corporate sector and join the bandwagon of SaaS startups in the country today. And it's been a great ride so far, and looking to learn a lot and hopefully get a better understanding of the payment space after this conversation with Atul today, because it's an opportunity for me also to learn, to have the opportunity to speak to someone like Atul, and I hope I can transfer that learning to the audience as well.
Yes, thank you so much, Sridhar. Yes, definitely. I'm sure this is going to be a very knowledge-packed session. So, yeah, before we get into the webinar, let me just walk everyone through the agenda points for today. We will be discussing the emerging trends and products in payments 2022, digitizing merchant onboarding, evolving relationship with banking players, and also customer retention and increasing customer lifecycle value. So these are the agenda points. Yes, so before we start the session, I'd like to let the audience know that we do have a question tab. It'll be towards the right hand corner of your screen. So throughout the session, any questions you have, please put it up over there. And we will also put up a couple of polls during the session. Please do interact with them. We would love to hear from you. Okay, so with that, let me hand the session over to our speakers. Sridhar, please take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kartika. Okay, Atul. So, I've been reading up a little bit before our chat today, and I think a good place to start for us would be to probably get an understanding of what a digital payment is. Right? I think there's so many options out there and so many ways of actually defining a digital payment. I was a little lost even just in that simple thread. So maybe your take on what you think is the definition of digital payments, and to follow that up, maybe we'll talk a little about the history of its evolution as well. But your take on the
Okay.
definition.
Okay. So I would rather tell you what digital money movement is. Okay.
Okay.
Payment is just one part of it. Okay.
Yeah.
And what can be payment for Atul? Atul goes to say Flipkart and buys something. Atul disburses money.
Mm-hmm.
Flipkart accepts money. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now at the end, suppose I buy a phone from Flipkart for 50,000 rupees. Flipkart, if it doesn't own the inventory, then Flipkart sends that money, a part of it, to the seller of that inventory. So now Flipkart is disbursing money, the seller is accepting money. The seller actually doesn't know Atul Mehta, seller actually only knows Flipkart. So So there are multiple use cases of money movement. For example, you go to Zerodha and buy a mutual fund. Zerodha accepts money, then gives that money to mutual fund. Mutual fund then accepts money. Zerodha disperses money. So, so what RazorPay does is, or what the fintech is all about all the money movements. It can be inward, it can be outward, it can be lending, it can be borrowing, it can be repayment, it can be subscription, it can be my payrolls. My company gives me salary. They disburse the payroll. I accept that money. So it can be your expense management. It can be your different charges, different bills that you pay. So essentially, all this is digital. All this is money movement. Okay?
Yep.
This can
Yep.
be digital. This can be not digital. A very simple definition of digital money movement is, for any money which you have to write something somewhere or go out somewhere at some place is not digital.
Got it.
Checks are not digital.
Yep.
So there's some people who confuse cash and non-cash with digital, non-digital. Cash
I
is
see.
definitely non-digital,
Yes.
but non-cash need not be non-digital. Non-cash can be digital, can be non-digital as well. I issue a challan, I go to a bank, pay that challan. So that is non-digital.
Yep.
And
Demand
also,
draft would be another example.
exactly. So that is exactly what digital money movement is. And just to give you a size of the industry that we are looking at, we are a 2.5 to $3 trillion GDP. Around 15 to 20 times of this, that is around 40 to 60 trillion dollars, changes hands every year. So
Wow.
this money can go from customer to customer. From I can send you money.
Yep.
It can be person to person. It can be person to merchant. That person to business. It can be business to business. It can be
Yep.
business to government. It can be government to business. It can be government to government. All those things, there is a person, there is a business, and there is government and agencies. And all of them have all the permutations, combinations of money transfer possible. So that is what is the money we are looking at. Out of that, currently, if you look at what is actually digital, it must be around $2 odd trillion. So out of 40 to 50, we only have two that is digital today. Still
So all of
38 or 38 to 40. I mean, there are loose estimates for that. There is no exact definition of that. But we currently are digital on max 5% of the money.
wow. So there's a long way to go, and I can understand why
So
you mentioned that this is a
that's
sunshine
what I
sector for a
that's
few
what I
years.
I
Yeah.
started by saying that at least another 5 to 7 years, this is the sunshine sector.
But so a large part of this, if you when you mentioned figures like 40 trillion and 60 trillion, dollars of money being moved across the country today, a large part of this is actually not visible to me as a consumer, right? To me as a consumer, what is visible, or what, for some numbers that are
Exactly.
being thrown around are like digital payments went from 2,300 crores in 2019 to 4,600 crores in 2021, etc., etc. Right? These
Yeah,
are
yeah,
fairly
yeah.
small
So
numbers,
you
isn't
are
it?
looking at only the figures where the customer is paying to the business.
Right.
Okay, and even in that,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at any e-commerce site, even today around 40 to 50% is cash on delivery, maybe 35% for evolved sites. But 45 to 50% is still cash on delivery. So that is also a non-digital game. So even if you do nothing, just convert that cash on delivery into digital, there is at least double of that we are looking at. Then this is only customer to business,
Right.
and that to e-commerce sector. We are not taking into account bill payments, all the compulsive payment. So also understand, whenever you talk to anyone about digital payments, you'll hear these two terms very often: commercial and optional.
Yep.
Sorry, compulsive and optional. Compulsive is the payment which you have to do whether you like it or not. For
Yeah.
example, I live in Gurgaon and this electricity supply is from DHBVL,
You have to pay.
Dakshin Haryana Bijli Vitran Nigam. Okay? I have to pay the bill to DHBVL. I can't go and say that I'll pay the bill to BSCS because BSCS Rajdhani has a very good bill payment system. They'll say, go and live there then. Because if you're living here, you have to pay the bill to D. Similarly, my son studies in DAV, so I have to pay the fee to DAV. I can't pay the fee to MIT. That's a compulsive payment.
Understood.
All the bill payments and all the bill payments essentially are compulsive. All the other payments that are optional. If I buy a phone from Amazon, I buy it for 50,000. I may buy that phone, the same phone from Flipkart, or I may not buy that phone at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot say that I will not pay my electricity bill.
Mm-hmm.
So
Understood.
compulsive and optional. And right now, around 5 years ago, the trend used to be that compulsive people were only after cost. They said just reduce the cost, reduce the cost, reduce the cost, because for them, they anyways the payment will come anyways.
Correct. It's more of
But
process efficiency than actual
yes,
innovation.
it's something that they are doing as an obligation to the customer. कि चलो यार
Yeah.
तुमको digital payment करा देते हैं, ठीक है?
Mm-hmm.
And optional were more into experience and the money, user experience. But lately, the last year or so, we've started seeing that many compulsive are also coming to us and asking about the experience, because they've realized that the money that they get digitally makes their life a lot more easier.
Yeah.
And how it makes their life easier, for example, now you may say that they anyways have to pay the charges, okay, 1%,
Yeah.
2%, whatever.
Mm.
I mean, so 100 rupees in cash is 100 rupees into my
In cash.
my,
Yeah.
मतलब गल्ले में 100 रुपए आ जाता है, to say it in crude ways, okay.
Yes.
But when you do digitally, you get 98 rupees.
Mm-hmm.
But the point here is cash is not free. The cash handling cost is around 4 to 5%.
Mm-hmm.
And the lower you go the value chain, the higher the costing is. Because imagine you go to a shop and buy something worth 52 rupees and pay 50 rupees and just walk away. So that person is actually given you 4% of that money as charges for
Yeah.
cash.
Yeah.
Other way around, you the bill is for 47, you get those 3 rupees ke toffee or eclairs, which you anyways don't need.
Exactly.
So you've actually paid them 6% as charges.
Mm-hmm.
So and this is the exact same problem. Then there is counterfeit currency problem. Then there is money interest loss due to the time spent in giving that money. Then reconciliation problem, so on and so forth. So
Mm-hmm.
around 4 to 5% the cash handling cost. But whereas what digital payments is less than 2%. So that is what's been happening. That's how the sector is evolving, and that's how we are seeing more acceptance of digital payments.
Understood. So all the noise that we hear today and all the lot of action that's happening today is at the consumer end or the customer experience end of the digital payments. And I know there is a lot of
No,
action
no, no,
happening at the
no.
back end as well, but it
Lot
is
of
not very
action is
visible.
happening in the B2B space also.
Exactly.
A
So
lot of action.
maybe can you throw a little light on that, because there's probably not enough
Yeah,
media
yeah,
attention on what's happening in
yeah.
that space as well, right?
And then that's because that its sector is a bit slow to adopt.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as I told you, business to business payments are also being done, and those are large ticket size items.
Yeah.
The disbursements are also done. The vendor payments is also done. So those are also gaining traction these days. Again, because everyone started realizing digital is good here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to recon. I don't need to worry about delay in payments or etc. etc. I don't need to have a team sitting here just doing the reconciliation. I don't need to employ someone to go and deposit this money to the bank. And I don't have to worry about the bounced checks. I don't need to write a check. So all these things are actually making our life very easy. And also what's happening is a lot of traditional sectors. I'll give you an example. IRCTC.
Mm-hmm.
When you and I go to IRCTC, we book 4 seats, 5 seats, maximum 10 seats. होगा तो 2 transaction में करना पड़ेगा, because one transaction allows you only 5 seats.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine you were to take out LeadSquared on a train trip. Okay, so you'll need one coach or maybe 2 coaches.
Yeah, a lot more at the way we are hiring, but yeah, please go on.
So that's what I'm saying. So you'll actually book a full coach, or IRCTC calls it FTR, full train reservation.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, what used to be, you write a check, IRCTC realizes that check and then gives you that coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very painful and lengthy process.
Mm-hmm.
What we've done is RazorPay runs something called a virtual account, where we'll generate a virtual account for you on the go,
Mm-hmm.
and you deposit money into that account. I send a success message to IRCTC that we've received the money for LeadSquared. The coach is assigned to you there and then.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are actually automating NEFT, RTGS, and check payment. So this is what we call a smart collect solution. So things like this are actually gaining a lot of traction. And as I told you, in the last 2-3 years, we've also seen the ones we thought were compulsive and ones who did will not pay any charges. They are also coming back to us and asking for solutions.
Yeah, absolutely. Because if the cash handling charges are 4 to 5%, and your online charges are 2%, you're actually more than halving the spend that you have to do to manage the money.
Yes, yes,
It's
yes, yes,
it feels like a fairly no-brainer to me if you ask me to actually move
yes,
away from cash.
yes, yes, yes.
Okay, cool.
And
So
also
yeah.
what happens is that if you look at the all the stakeholders and
Hmm.
customers, the businesses, the players like us who are facilitating this, and even the government of India, nobody wants to deal in cash. Our currency printing cost is around 1.7, 1.8% of our GDP. For USA, it is 0.8%. Their GDP is much higher than us, by the way.
Hmm.
Okay, and they are so we are actually losing more than 1% of our GDP every year just for printing those costs, for printing the notes. Every
Hmm.
time you print a note, then you have new security features. Then you
Yeah.
change that note because somebody hacks the code. I mean, that's a big pain. Nobody wants to take that pain. The government is
Hmm.
the last person who wants to take that pain. And cash is something which it gives rise to all the corruption and everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Understood.
why
Okay.
that's why you see currency notes being changed. Demon happened because of this only.
Hmm. Because of the high currency charges. Understood. Understood. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so I think you've kind of given us a view on how the segment has evolved as well. I think to start off with, what was playing or acting as digital payment was basically a bank-to-bank transfer, right? If I did an online transfer from point A to point B, or let's say way back in the 80s and 90s when you had credit cards and the first debit cards that came out in the subsequent decade, I think those were initially the forms of digital payments that actually started, right? But I think somewhere in the last 7, 8 years, with the advent of UPI and then the impact of COVID, I think the game has kind of changed as far as the consumer experience goes. At the back end of the B2B side, like you mentioned, they're slow to adopt, and the transaction values are extremely high. I think that will evolve as we go along. But but what happened with UPI? I think UPI is one of the world's best financial gateways that has been created by a government organization, and I think it's really changed the game for India, right? So, what was
Yes.
really the impact of UPI and then COVID on this whole ecosystem of players?
Okay. UPI is something which you have rightly said. Which is the world's best payment system or mechanism. UPI is nothing but IMPS version 2. In
Yep.
IMPS, I needed your account number and your bank name and bank IFSC code, etc., etc.
Yep.
UPI replaced it with BPA virtual payment address, which is as simple as an email ID, Atul.Mehta at YBL, and it doesn't let out any secret because anyways you know my email ID, so you can know my BPA also.
Hmm.
People were actually skeptical of giving account numbers out to everyone,
Yep.
although nobody can do anything with my account number also. But anyways,
Yeah.
that so this UPI is actually almost a no-brainer. Why should anyone not be using UPI?
Hmm.
Okay, it's just as easy as sending an email to you,
Hmm.
and the payment system that we built is actually world class. And you know, I was in Malaysia very recently, and RazorPay has expanded business there. We acquired a company in Malaysia,
Yeah.
and we met the Malaysian government officials who wanted to know about UPI. They
Hmm.
actually sent a team to India to talk to NPCI to see what they've also introduced something called RPP, real time payments,
Hmm.
which is similar to what RUPay is. So it is something that we've actually cracked the code first.
That's
In fact, in
fantastic.
fact, in fact, for that matter, the entire Indian digital payment system is perhaps the most secure in the world, especially because of the two-factor authentication, one that you have and one that you know and one that you get, the two factors basically.
Yeah, yeah. Understood. Understood. Okay. So I think so. Like you mentioned, UPI was a major milestone for us. But what did it do for the? Like I mentioned right at the start, so there are multiple payment methods that you have, right? You have the wallets, you have BNPL, you have accounts, credit cards, debit cards, etc. And then you have the gateways such as yourself who actually funnel in that payment option and transfer it to a business account at the back end. So what did UPI do? I mean, suddenly we see the proliferation in the last 5, 6 years of so many fintechs and payment firms, right? Uh, so where is this headed? Yeah, with so much ease of transaction coming in and so many players coming in to actually transact this money, what is going to? I mean, where is this headed from a consumer perspective? Am I just going to keep getting more options to pay from, or is this going to consolidate in some way to make it even smoother to actually transact with money? Hello, I think we've lost Atul. Uh, the expert team, can you just check in?
Yes, yes, we will check with him in our backend. Yes.
No problem.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe while the audience is hanging on for Atul to come back, maybe we can have one of the poll questions thrown out as well in the chat.
Yeah, we were on UPI and we were on, how UPI simplified the whole money movement experience for customer to business, business to customer, everything,
Yeah, yeah.
UPI, nothing better could have happened to us than UPI.
Understood. And the question, follow-up question I had, Atul, on top of that is UPI is essentially made by a government entity, right? It's not privately owned. It's NPCI, which probably created in UPI. And correct me if I'm wrong. But so what is it that, what additional masala, for lack of a better word, can companies who are offering different payment options or companies who are offering different gateway services, what do they do with this UPI to actually become a preferred option for businesses and individuals, right? What is it that they can add on top of this layer of UPI, which has actually been created by another entity, and you don't really have control in how that operates? So
No, a
that's, I
very
think, an
valid
interesting.
question. In
Yeah.
fact, yeah, in fact, a lot is being done by organizations like us and by other organizations to ensure that the user experience is seamless. Okay, I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you an example. One of the earliest innovations in the UPI sector was UPI intent flow. Earlier,
Mm-hmm.
you used to get a collect request, and then you would go into your app and do it. Now you get an intent flow. You click on the app opens up seamlessly within the same flow, and you make that payment. Because essentially, you need a UPI app to make a payment.
Yeah.
Then another thing is that there are organizations who are building their own UPI handles. For example, Bajaj has done this. Tata
Mm-hmm.
is doing it as we speak. It's Adani next. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
they will build their own UPI handles, their own UPI acquirings, and with of course with the system of bank and some players like us.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening. Then then you also see the sound-based system coming into UPI. There are
Sound
companies
based.
working. Missed call. There's a company called
Okay.
Missed Call Pay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who's working on you can make a UPI payment through a missed call. Because a
Wow.
missed call to a number, the bank calls you back. You enter your uh, uh, OTP. Sorry, enter your UPI pin, and the payment is made. You don't need a smartphone. Because
I see.
what's happening
Yes.
is right now everybody's playing in the top 15 to 30% of the population.
Correct.
There is another 70-85% population still very unbanked. They are not
Mm-hmm.
unbanked, they are undigitized, they are unfintech
Digitized. Yeah.
basically, if I may use that word.
Yeah.
So that's what's happening. A lot is happening in the UPI sector. In fact, and again, I'm repeating myself. The sector is gonna see many more innovations coming in the next 5 to 7 years at least.
Understood. So to some extent, I think the boundaries between banks, fintech, and tech players is going to kind of is going to blur a bit as we go along, right? Because as if
Yeah,
you have to
yeah,
take
yeah.
services to tier two and tier three, you obviously need the infrastructure of banks to be present there as well.
Yes. Of course. So I was telling you about UPI and the innovations that are happening, and they'll continue to happen at least for the next 5 to 7 years. And nothing is stopping us from, conquering this whole space.
Understood. Got it, Atul. And in terms of risks, do you see any major risks? Because I mean, as things go online, I know that there is a lot of play around cybersecurity and identity thefts, etc., which is coming up as well. And as we go into tier two, tier three markets, you know,
Yes,
digital option is going to be
yes,
new, right?
yes,
People have to be safe
yes.
and
Risk,
secure.
risk, risk is a big thing that we need to take care of, and all the stakeholders, including players like us, including the government, including the authorities, are
Mhm.
taking all the steps required to ensure that our payment system or our money movement system is as robust and as risk proof as it can be. It also the onus is on the end customers to ensure you keep on hearing messages like do not share your OTP with anyone, but
Mhm.
people just I don't know why they fall for the trap at the last minute and then they say yaar us time nahi pata laga.
Mhm. Okay, so this
I
is
mean
still a genuine problem. People actually
a
share their
hacker is
OTPs.
actually a hacker is actually trying to catch you when you are the most vulnerable.
Hmm.
So we just need to be on our toes every time and ensure that OTPs, passwords are never shared.
I see. Okay. So that kind of shifts a bit of the onus of security also to the end consumer rather than just
Yes,
keeping it with the fintechs and the
yes,
banks as well.
yes.
Okay. So I guess a lot of regulations is something that can also be expected as we go along the next few years.
There are already regulations. There are redressal mechanisms. The ombudsman is a big thing. You see the ads on the TV also. So actually,
as I told you, all the stakeholders, including the government, including players like us, including the businesses, are trying to make sure that people start being more and more digital. And whatever problems you have are being addressed. So worry not, we are on our path to, we are already, perhaps I would say, one of the best in the world, if not the best, in terms of robustness, security, and in terms of size. Of course, this is where you can't beat India.
Yeah, absolutely. With the population we have and the economy that's going to go over the
Yes,
next 10 years,
yes,
I guess, it's definitely one of the best markets to be in. Since we're talking about markets, I also assume that a lot of the
yes.
Indian digital payments ecosystem companies are also looking at markets like India outside India as well, right? I understand Southeast Asia is exciting. I understand parts of Africa are exciting. I understand parts of South America are exciting.
Yeah,
Any
yeah.
views on
Southeast
that?
Asia is pretty exciting, and Southeast Asia is pretty exciting. In fact, Southeast Asia, barring Singapore, is where we were 5 years ago.
I
Talk of
see.
Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia, Philippines, Laos, Cambodia. Laos, Cambodia are small, but still, Laos, Cambodia. You talk of these countries, they were where we were 5 years ago. Still, people upload the wallet, then use that wallet to make the payment. Still, card present transactions are more in number than card not present transactions. So, and that's one of the reasons why we've chosen Southeast Asia as our entry into the global markets.
I see. Fantastic. I think we are also seeing similar traction there, and LeadSquared also is kind of looking to expand its
Yes,
footprint in the whole Southeast Asia and APAC regions
yes,
as well.
yes,
Cool,
yes,
Atul. I think, just in the interest of time, we also had to set aside a few minutes for some questions from the audience as well. So
yes.
maybe if you have any final thoughts on the ecosystem or what we spoke about, it'd be great to hear that. And then maybe we can take up a few of the questions that I see that have popped up in our
No,
ecosystem as well.
I've expressed my thoughts, and as I told you, this sector has only one place to go. That's grow. There's
Yeah,
no
understood.
other option.
Okay, cool. So one of the questions we have here is, and I think this came up when you were talking about cost of cash, right? Cost of printing cash, cost of keeping cash being 1.8%. And I guess the question is related to that is what's the future of digital currencies and NFTs in India? We also have a follow-up
Yeah,
crypto session soon.
digital
Yeah.
currency is one part of digital payment. CBDC, that we call it, central bank digital currency. In fact, e-rupee was the first in this. Was maybe more. I'm not got the proof of concept. It was the first step in that direction when we started. In fact, that is where the government started offering this e-rupee for COVID subsidy, for subsidizing the COVID vaccines. Okay, because right now what happens is Sridhar goes and gets himself vaccinated. Then he presents the bill to LeadSquared. LeadSquared pays that bill. Before that, Sridhar has already paid that money to whichever hospital he got vaccinated from. So there is, 3 hops for that money to reach that hospital. Where that money is going from LeadSquared to, say, Apollo Hospital. So we can cut down this if we have the digital currency. Sridhar gets the digital currency, he can use it only for COVID. He goes and shows it. Money is transferred directly from the
Point A to
company
point B.
to the, yeah.
Understood. Understood. Cool. So I think a follow-up question to the same thing is also card tokenization, right? So there is a view that some people have
Yes.
that physical credit cards will disappear over a period of time, right?
Yeah,
What's your
exactly,
take on that?
exactly. That's what I always say. Credit cards will not go anywhere. The form will change.
Exactly. Yeah. Understood.
So you
Because
don't need to carry these many cards in your wallet. You actually don't need to carry a wallet for that matter.
yeah, got it. You just need your phone.
Because these days everybody, and just look at things around you. At airports, you don't need a boarding pass.
Yeah.
I mean, why waste paper on something which can be done digitally?
Absolutely. Agreed.
Because it's a cost and it's an environmental cost also involved. Just look at it. Every page you print, every paper you print somewhere, some tree is being cut somewhere for that.
Understood. And I think most credit cards are anyway plastic. So
Anyway, the plastics, and plastic is one big problem that we will soon have a plastic ocean.
cool. So I think card tokenization. So you're saying is the form of the credit card is going to change, but yeah, obviously credit card is
Card
not going anywhere.
tokenization, if you look at
BNPL, I
layman
guess,
terms, card token is nothing but an encryption of your card.
yeah.
So my card number is 1234. I encrypt it as a ABCD, and ABCD is stored. Nobody knows the logic of 1234 to ABCD.
Understood.
So there's encryption, there's decryption, there's tokenization, there's de-tokenization also. And that's what we offer as a full stack service. Again, as I said, money movement, when I said initially we started off by payments, I said money movement. Tokenization is also another part of money movement.
Understood. Cool. So moving on to another question which we have from Sushil is, what's the alternate method to UPI with a similar money transfer experience? Is there one? Is the question.
Why do you need an alternative?
Fair point. I don't know if Sushil can type in his views on why
It's
he's
already
looking for
the
an
best,
alternative.
you know.
Yeah, why break something that's good?
Since I'm sitting at the airport, I will say, what's the alternative to flying by air? Maybe you know, I dissolve here and I appear in Bangalore.
Yeah, that's a bit of Harry Potter thrown in there. So,
Yeah, that's where I borrowed it from. So in fact, so when air travel is the best, why do I need an alternate? So I don't think we need an alternate to UPI.
okay,
We
got
needed
it.
an alternate to NEFT, which was IMPS. We needed an alternate to IMPS, which is UPI. I mean, again, the shape and form may change. I mean, one day we may have a neural network based UPI transfer that I think that I transfer 100 rupees, Sridhar gets it. But that's more a science fiction as of now. But who knows? I mean, you know, if you ask my parents, maybe for them UPI was also a science fiction.
Absolutely. I mean, I have no doubt about it at all. Okay, cool. So, and then the other one we have is, what would be the future of international transactions? As currently there's Swift code of banks, with the payment time lies for about 1 to 2 days. Are international payments going to get sorted out?
Yes, exactly. So this whole framework or the whole rails should also go international. The international problem is different regulations in the different countries regarding money, and also the tax treatment. That makes it difficult for money to flow seamlessly internationally, and also there is restriction on capital movement from some countries to other
To other
countries.
countries, yeah. You have your withholding
So
tax and
it's not
transaction tax,
seamless.
etc.
You know, moving money from Haryana to Punjab is not as simple as moving money from India to Pakistan or India to Nepal.
Yeah.
So again, you know, as I said, all the things are falling into place. We've come a long way from where we were. Not very long, not from 5 years ago where we were. We've come a long way. Even in international, the only problem is the time and the charges it takes for international payment is pretty high. And all the players, including us and other players, are, you know, trying our best to see how we can solve this.
Understood.
Because
So do you
there's a
foresee?
problem. There is always that I'll say the bad actor problem. So you make something, then the bad actors will come up and, you know, they'll start money laundering or smuggling or hawala, etc., etc. I mean, tons of those things.
Understood. Understood. And this is just a, now, you know, this is just a question from my side. It triggered a thought what you were saying. So, for example, countries in Europe bonded together to form something called euro, right, which became their de facto currency, though it is a hard currency which is on paper, right? So, do you foresee
Yes.
just throwing a political angle to the whole thing, where countries get together and have like a common e-currency? For example, could SAARC nations tomorrow have e-rupee as the default payment option?
Exactly. So why can't the world have one currency?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that would be difficult, I guess, but starting at a regional level is what I was wondering.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying CBDC is nothing but a step in that direction only. Central bank digital currency, then Indian subcontinent digital currency,
Right. Yeah.
then a SAARC digital currency, then an APAC digital currency, then northern and southern hemisphere digital currencies.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm just throwing some science fiction into it.
Yeah, I know, Atul, but it is fascinating what money can happen. Right? The concept of money itself is fascinating, and how it's changing over the years is brilliant.
At the end of the day, the origin of money was this only.
Yeah.
There used to be barter system before this, right?
Correct.
That you give me this AirPod and I give you a phone.
Yeah.
Barter. But money is nothing but a guarantee. So that's why, you know, money is just a bearer check. I promise to pay the bearer a sum of 100 rupees.
Correct.
So that's how it started. That the moment someone can ensure this value of money flows across, it can be international also.
Got it. That's an interesting aside. Okay, Kartika, I mean, there are a couple of more questions. Do we have time for these? We can take them up as well.
I think we can take up like two more questions if that's okay,
Okay,
with both the speakers, and then we can definitely wrap the session up. Yeah.
sure. So I think there's a question from
I'm good.
Aditya.
I'm good. In fact, I know I took away around 10 minutes struggling with my
No,
tech struggles.
that's
That's
fine, Atul.
completely
Not a
fine.
problem.
That's understandable. Yes.
So I think the question says RBI has come up with a department for fintech, which clearly indicates regulators are acknowledging the disruption in the way people are transacting. What are the pros and cons you see of this upcoming, involvement from RBI?
I don't see any cons. I only see pros in this. It's good that, and in
Somebody's
fact,
acknowledging
not
it.
today. This hasn't happened today. Government has always acknowledged us, and
I think so too. Yeah.
our banks and the government are our best friends, maybe. Okay, in helping us grow, in helping the fintech sector grow, because it's in their interest also. They're not doing it out of charity. It's helping them. So it's everybody's benefiting out of it.
Yeah, and I think the benefits go far beyond just ease of operations. I think the benefits also go into taxation, into avoidance of taxation.
Taxation, traceability, security,
Yeah,
corruption,
yeah. Funding
all
of
these things,
unlawful activities, all of that.
just make everything digital and these things will go away.
That I don't know. I might have a different view on that. It will not go away. I think people always find an alternate way to kind of
Agreed. That's
figure
what
out
I'm
how to
saying.
do it. But it will reduce.
It's a Tom Jerry game that we keep on playing, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's bang on. I think Tom and Jerry is again a good example to to give here. I think final question we'll take one is I think somebody's asked about the fund transfer limit to be raised over a period of time. Does it need to be done? Do we need to have types of transactions with different fund transfer limits? What's your view on that?
Exactly. And there's a reason why you have fund transfer limit. That's also for security reasons. And that's also we've seen that the use cases of you, for example, UPI, you can transfer not more than 1 lakh rupees. And the banks also impose their limits. But again, it's security. I mean, it's for our benefit only. And then we've seen that multiple, around 80-90% of transactions fall within that range. So we'll rather not risk it by increasing the limit. We'll rather err on the wrong side of this.
Understood. And Atul, coming from the fintech space, I know a lot of our fintech customers and people that I speak with as well. The utopian vision is that at some level, banks kind of go to the complete background of financial transactions as far as the consumer is concerned, and the consumer actually interacts with all the best in consumer experience that organizations such as yourself are actually throwing up out there. And possibly the way forward at some point would be that I don't even know which bank my money is with, right? I just transact with a brand and a logo, and at the back end there are maybe multiple people taking care of
that's happening even today. That's happening even today. You use an HDFC Bank Visa card or ICICI Bank Mastercard, and you transact shop on say Flipkart or Amazon or pay book ticket on ICTC. You don't know which banks RazorPay uses to transfer that money. You don't know which bank does IRCTC or Flipkart have their accounts with. So that's already happening. Banks are in the bank. Banks are pretty happy to be in the background.
Okay.
So for them, any customization is very, very difficult because of the legacy that they have.
Yeah.
And which is good because their security and their protocols do not allow them to do customizations for every client.
Understood. So I think the use cases for each segment in this space are very different. Banks, of course, have to be the most
everybody
secure.
Has every player, every payment modes. In fact, many people ask me, why do we need so many payment modes? Credit card, debit card, UPI, wallet, net banking. Ek hi rakh do. So my point is that every payment mode has its own pros and cons, has its own use cases. Credit card has its own use case, 45 days credit.
Free credit, yeah.
Okay, but not everyone gets a credit card. Okay, and that's the reason. And the reason for that is every credit card transaction is a loan that the issuing bank gives to you.
Yeah.
So tomorrow Atul Mehta runs away, ICICI Bank loses money.
Correct.
Or HDFC loses money. Okay. So debit card is nothing but a prepaid thing. Net banking is something where there are businesses which do not want a debit card. They want to log in, have a maker checker concept built into, and then pay. UPI is nothing but evolved net banking. Wallet is nothing but a 2-hop thing. You put money and then you go out. Yeah. So every use case, every payment mode has its own use case.
What is BNPL?
And every player in this ecosystem has their own role to play.
Understood. And what about BNPL? BNPL is just another fancy form of a credit card, right?
No, BNPL is
EMI.
cardless EMIs. That's what we call it. People who
Cardless
do not
EMIs.
have a card.
Okay.
So, players like Just Money or Simple or ePay Later,
Mm-hmm.
these folks have stepped in into a space which was there ripe to be nurtured. Especially the uncarded population
Mm-hmm.
and people who do not want to use their card for whatever reason. So that's where BNPL is. I personally feel BNPL has its limited usage only.
Mm-hmm.
This sector can only go up to a certain extent because the risk is pretty high.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
NPS
because
are
it's.
already pretty high. The cost is pretty high. They are bleeding money.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, I would not like to share my views on BNPL on this forum. I do have my views. We can talk
Okay.
about them offline sometime.
Sure, Atul. I think I'll definitely touch up with you on that for sure. Great. Thank you so much. I think we are out of questions as well. And Kartika, we should wrap it up here. Thank you so much, Atul. I
Yes,
think it's a great
definitely.
discussion. And, keeping aside the small interruption that we had, I think I had a lot of
Yeah.
fun having a chat with you as well.
Yes.
In the
Thank you
end,
so much.
in the end, if you win the match, it's good. It doesn't make a difference if you from 20 to 25 you did not play well. That's okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you so much to both the speakers, Mr. Atul, Mr. Sridhar, for taking the time and personally, what I would say is relatable, as in the examples thrown towards the audience was very relatable. So it was a fun and interactive session. And thank you so much to the audience for being very patient and just,
Yeah.
sticking with us throughout the session.
Yeah,
Thank you so
a
much.
big a
And
big thank you to those who stayed on.
Yeah. Big thank you to all of you who stayed on. Thank you so much.
yes, yes,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you so much. Yes, so yeah, we do have a session tomorrow also. We have a session on scaling crypto businesses faster in 2022. So same
Yeah,
time tomorrow, 5 p.m.
I know the speaker. We've already spoken about this session.
Yes, so I am hoping that everybody will tune in tomorrow also, and we're gonna have a fun session. So that is all, Mr. Atul. Have a safe flight. I know that you're traveling. Yes. So,
Yeah.
Mr.
Safe
Sridhar,
journeys,
thank
Atul.
you.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Thanks, folks.
Kartika.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you. Thank you. Bye bye. Good night.